Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. Today we'll be going over a movie everyone knows, The Avengers. The movie begins with two premises, one representing each side. We see Loki cutting a deal with the other, where Loki gains access to the Chitauri army to conquer Earth with in exchange for the Tesseract. Currently, the Tesseract is being held by S.H.I.E.L.D., which sets up the premise for the protagonist. Due to a certain being that will be featured later in this movie, S.H.I.E.L.D. is building weapons of mass destruction using the sustainable energy of the Tesseract. So the Tesseract is what brings these two premises together and gets the movie rolling. More specifically, they come together when Loki creates a portal using the Tesseract to get into S.H.I.E.L.D's outpost. When Loki does this, he immediately starts causing chaos by taking control of many S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, including Dr. Eric Selvig and Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye. With his new arsenal, Loki is able to escape from the S.H.I.E.L.D. outpost. Without any other choice, Nick Fury, the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., has to reinstate the Avengers initiative. Now let's take a look at the assets that Loki acquired and how they play a pivotal role in the story. First, there's Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye. Him being compromised contributes a lot to the film. When Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is called by Phil Coulson to join the Avengers, she is initially hesitant, but at the mention of Barton, she immediately goes into fire mode. Without Barton, there is no Romanoff. She wouldn't have been as motivated to get out of the situation she was in, either leading to a failure to join the team or her death. This means that Bruce Banner would also have not joined the team. Phil tells Romanoff that she has to recruit Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. She is able to skillfully get Banner to a secluded area and persuade him to join the team, well, after pulling a gun on him after getting too angry, but not enough to become the Hulk. If you bring anyone else in to recruit Banner, you are not getting the level of dialogue that was present in that scene, or a setup for a possible relationship down the road that impacts other movies. It's really good for developing the relationship between both characters, signifying the makings of a team, even if there is some distrust sprinkled in there. Anyway, Banner's involvement is crucial for the mission. He's the only one with the knowledge powerful enough to track the Tesseract. However, he's also crucial to bringing tension to the story. It's a fear of him turning into the Hulk that causes chaos in the massive argument scene, and Banner/Hulk not wanting to be confined. Romanoff learns about Loki wanting to capitalize on this fear, and the only reason why Romanoff went to talk to Loki was to figure out what he did to none other than Barton. In addition, this talk, with the help of Barton, also inspires Romanoff to wipe the red off her ledger and fight for a better cause for the Avengers, bringing it all back to the main plotline. The second of Loki's assets is Dr. Eric Selvig. Because of Selvig's knowledge, Loki and his squad pull up to Stuttgart to gather iridium to stabilize the reactor, as Stark will later tell us when he says he went over Selvig's notes. Ultimately, this trip to Stuttgart results in Loki being captured and gets him on the helicarrier to start his plan. However, before they get back to the helicarrier, Thor comes in while Loki is being transported. He takes Loki into the forest where they have a talk, but before he can say more, he gets blasted by Iron Man, where Thor gets occupied with a fight. Now imagine they have this fight in the city. Thor could have come in basically any time to stop Loki, so it being in a rural area is very important. It keeps the focus on the heroes in Loki rather than having to save someone. Keep in mind, this doesn't happen without Selvig. What also doesn't happen is Loki's escape, which is only possible due to Selvig knowing how to track the scepter, which is the same way that the Avengers track the Tesseract. After this, Selvig sets up the portal, which lets the Chitauri army to roll in and start wreaking havoc. However, we haven't even talked about the most valuable asset Loki received. And no, it's not the massive Chitauri army. Even though it's what Loki asks for, he gets something way more valuable. It's the scepter. First of all, it's what allowed Barton and Selvig to forcefully turn to Loki's side. As I described before, these two were vital for being moving parts for not just Loki's plan, but the movie as a whole. But the scepter's capabilities go further than being able to turn people onto one side. It can also indirectly influence people. When we see the Avengers and Nick Fury in the research and development room, there are massive arguments brewing between everyone. The Avengers are mad with Fury about Phase 2, Thor is mad about higher forms being mistreated on Earth, Cap and Star are getting into a heated argument about whether or not the other is actually a hero, but probably the most important is that regarding Banner, who is ever so slowly becoming angrier by the second. And the reason this is so important is because if the Hulk comes out of Banner, then there's gonna be a lot of chaos and a lot of things are gonna get destroyed on the helicarrier, and that's not gonna be a good outlook for the Avengers. So Fury and Romanoff want to keep him isolated so that he doesn't create this chaos, but Banner and the Hulk do not like this. He doesn't want to be contained or be seen as a threat. While all this bickering seems natural, a pin to the scepter reveals that it's the one actually causing the chaos. It's the one that's actually influencing the Avengers to think so negatively about each other. When Loki is rather easily captured, Cap is immediately aware of this. He tells multiple times that they should pay attention to Loki and focus. However, these cautions get ignored by the rest of the team. While this seems contrived at first, the Scepter's influence provides a nice logical explanation. Loki doesn't want the Avengers to focus on the Scepter's capabilities because it's a valuable tool that can rip them apart. Because of this, nobody is able to think clearly when around the Scepter. If you think about it, when the Scepter is not in the vicinity of the heroes, they are able to come up with clear ideas about what to do next. For example, the scene where all the Avengers together, excluding Barton, are initially on the helicarrier. In fact, during this argument, Iron Man sarcastically says that a nuclear deterrent calms everything down. During the fight, Phase 2 is launched with a nuke headed towards Manhattan. Without the Scepter around, he can solve the problem and come up with a way to use the nuke as an advantage in their push. Sword guides it towards the Chitauri mothership and blows it up. This kills all the Chitauri, which ends up calming things down and ending the fight. Well, Black Widow also has to close the portal, which she does using, you guessed it, the Scepter. Alright, I know I jumped to the end of the movie, but there's still one all-powerful dot to talk about, Phil Coulson's death. This death does seem to be contrived because Coulson pokes at Loki before getting the chance to shoot. However, it's absolutely important to the story. Before his death, we see Phil Coulson demonstrate a lot of passion and contribute heavily to the Avengers initiative. I mean, the guy even has Captain America trading cards. That's how you know he's committed. Anyway, Fury uses his death to motivate the Avengers to start fighting again, but only Cap and Stark because they're the only ones in the room. However, it's through Coulson's death that Stark and Cap set aside their differences to fight for the same cause. With this newfound respect, they get Barton and Romanoff to start the fight. Thor, also seeing Coulson die, makes an effort to come back to the fight, and Banner, well, a normal security guard gets him back. Funny how that works. Even then, Coulson's death was necessary for the Avengers to actually want to fight. This is why sometimes death is needed in movies. It establishes stakes and makes everything done in the movie more impactful. Without death, you won't get that feeling when you watch a movie. This is assuming it's done correctly, of course. But you know it's done correctly when the character uses that death as motivation to keep going, which is what's done in the Avengers. When Iron Man goes to Stark Tower, he has a talk with Loki, who is there to manage his plan. He shares the same sentiments that Coulson did when Loki killed him too. He talks about why Loki will lose. This is because the Avengers will always get back up to keep fighting until they come out on top. This is what he learned from Coulson's death. Even if you lose, you have to come back. No matter what happens, you have to keep fighting. Keep believing in the goal and ultimately you will win. That's the message that ends up driving the Avengers forward. It's what's demonstrated in the 360 spin shot with all the Avengers united. Despite the failures and misunderstandings, the Avengers are ready to fight whenever they are needed. That's how they end up winning the fight and defeating Loki. Well, that's how the dots were connected in the Avengers. I hope you enjoyed watching. Consider liking this video and clicking the subscribe button to see more content like this. Next time we'll go over a much more calm movie. Until then, I'll see you later.